Are you looking for a job? If so, we know how you're feeling, as this is often a tedious process filled with many predicaments. Some people say that job search is a bit like dating, and rightly so, as both have a lot in common. After all, you never know when the right match will pop up. You go to a date or an interview filled with expectations only to see that it won't work out. Or you fall in love with a prospective partner or employer, but you end up being rejected. And just like with dating, the purpose of interviewing for a job is getting to know those who you will have a relationship with and present yourself in the best light. However, this is when the trouble begins, as hiring managers can ask all sorts of questions during an interview. Most of those aim to test your motivation, communication, and presentation skills. Although it is relatively easy to answer questions like, "Why do you want to work here?" or "Tell me about yourself." Some questions can be very challenging. That's why in this video, we will look at 5 of the most difficult job interview questions and the best ways to answer them. Please give a thumbs up if you find the video useful. Also, feel free to ask questions or share with us some of the difficult questions you've been asked during job interviews. So, let's look at question number 1. What is your major weakness? This question is probably one of the most difficult to answer at a job interview. That is normal because it often activates the candidate's fear of rejection. After all, who would not be afraid to talk about their shortcomings? You might be thinking that whatever answer you give, it will affect negatively the company's decision of whether to hire you or not. But this isn't true. Hiring managers ask this question not to sabotage you, but mostly because they want to see if you have a good self-awareness and your attitude towards potential weaknesses. First, let's look at what not to do when asked this type of question. It is not suggested that you try to use it as an opportunity to talk about a positive as if it is a negative. Remember, a weakness is a weakness, not a strength in disguise. Forget about cliches such as, "I am a perfectionist," or "I work too hard sometimes." It is not a good idea to refuse to answer either. This shows the hiring manager that you aren't prepared enough, or that you are not aware of things you need to work on, or that you are trying to withhold something about yourself. You need to remember that you must be honest every time you interview with employers. Not too honest, though. Another mistake you should avoid making is being too candid when talking about your weaknesses. Do not give examples with shortcomings that are crucial to the particular job position. If you are an accountant, for example, you cannot say that you don't have an eye for details. Or if you would like to work in sales, you must not confess that persistence or communication are not really your strengths. So, what is the best approach here? To choose a relatively minor weakness with regards to the position. Explain it briefly, and make sure you say that you are in the process of overcoming it. Be clear, unafraid, and positive about your progress. For example, I used to get nervous when speaking in front of large groups. However, I've learned to prepare concise speech notes, rehearse beforehand, and communicate with the audience when speaking. This practice has helped me improve my presentation skills significantly. Remember, the important thing is that you need to describe a weakness that is not critical for the job being discussed. So, the example we have given you would be appropriate only if the position does not require advanced presentation skills. Question number 2. Where do you see yourself in 5 or in 10 years? This one is tricky because it basically asks if you plan a long-term commitment to the job. Of course, this is exactly what they want to hear. So, if you see yourself as an entrepreneur in the near future, better not mention it because employers obviously want to be sure you are willing to work with them in the long run so that they have a reason to invest in you. Another tip, be careful when saying that you want to climb the career ladder very quickly. Basically, this is how most people will answer this question. However, it's fine, as long as you also stress that you are eager to use your skills and knowledge at the particular job you are interviewing for, and that you want to really master it before moving up. This way, you will avoid being regarded as overly ambitious and lacking awareness of how long it takes to grow professionally. Thus, if asked this question, you can say something like, "In the first 2 years, I see myself becoming a real expert at my role. And for the 3 or 4 years after that, I see myself extending my expertise, and being able to contribute to the company's growth by taking more responsibilities. Question number 3. Why did you leave your previous job? Indeed, this is another tough question, as it might tempt you into talking about the problems you had in your former workplace. You might want to share how inefficient your colleagues were, or that you were underpaid, or you were assigned too many additional responsibilities. However, this is not a good approach. Although you want to be as honest as possible, you also need to be careful about how you frame your answer. The best thing to do is to focus on your desire to grow professionally. If you have applied for a position that is significantly different from your previous job, you can say, I am looking for opportunities to learn something new. Or if you are interviewing for a slightly different position, you can point out that you would really like to build on your previous experience. Let's suggest you are interviewing for a financial analyst. What you can say is, I have been working as an accountant for many years. However, I would like to develop my expertise and improve my financial analysis skills. The position offered will let me achieve my goal, and my background would allow me to get up to speed pretty quickly. It is important that you don't say that you have been looking for a job just because you wanted a higher salary. And one more tip, keep it short and sweet. Don't go in too much detail about why you left your previous job. This is actually valid for all difficult questions you are asked at a job interview. Question number 4. Give an example of how you handled a conflict with a colleague. This question is designed to test your ability to communicate effectively, especially with people you don't agree with. Remember that in any organization, there are different people. Therefore, good communication skills are always very important for managing tensions among colleagues and keeping a smooth workflow. When answering this question, you should try to focus on how you contributed to the resolution of a given conflict, and not how the other participants were at fault. So, blaming others is evidently not a recommended approach. The best thing to do here is to choose a situation in which you have successfully managed a conflict, explain it briefly, and tell the way you helped for reaching a happy end, so to say. For example, I was managing the creation of our advertising materials for a big trade show we were presenting at. We were on a very tight deadline. However, one of the designers was getting behind schedule with assigned tasks. I asked him to be quicker, and he blew up at me. Instead of yelling at him, I chose to talk to the person in a calm manner. It turned out that during the work process, he had to use program features he had never used before. This had required extra time spent in learning, and eventually, he became overwhelmed. However, the designer was afraid of saying he was going to be late, and got resentful at me and the workload. After the open conversation we had, we agreed that in the future, he would explain to me a bit better whether the task at hand represents something within his skill set. And last but not least, what are your salary requirements? This is probably the most difficult question. It takes a great amount of courage and self-awareness to talk about money without any fears. How can you do that? Well, first of all, take the question as a normal part of the interviewing process. Of course, it is a very important one, and you should prepare well. However, don't dread unnecessarily when it comes to negotiating compensation. Actually, good preparation is what will help you relax and even enjoy answering this question. These are our recommended basic guidelines one should follow. A. Do some preliminary research regarding salaries for the job position you are interviewing for. An easy way is to check websites that give information about the going rates for jobs in your field and in your job market. Using these will help you understand how compensation is formed according to a number of factors, such as the size of the company you're interviewing with, location, and your experience level. B. Go for the bigger number. After you've done your preliminary research, you can state a number which is between 5 and 15% higher than the average rate. However, what is crucial here is to mention how your skills and knowledge are worth paying more money. You can say something like, provided my experience and the value I could bring to the company, give examples of how you could contribute. A salary of X amount of money would be fair compensation. If you give a slightly bigger number, you will still have a chance to get a job offer. Companies usually have a flexible budget, and if they like you, they would be willing to pay you a bit more money. However, don't ask for too much, because in this way, You risk being crossed out as unfitting if they decide they cannot afford you. C. Be careful when giving a salary range. This is crucial in order not to lowball yourself. Remember that if you give a range between, let's say, $80K and $100K a year, what an employer would usually want to pay is $80K, and what you would be most often thinking about is $100K. So, if you are giving a range, make sure that its lowest number is realistic, and you would be happy receiving it. D. Consider other benefits. This is important too. Besides your salary, there may be other forms of compensation that are just as valuable for you. Additional health insurance, flexible work schedule, and home working options can compensate for a lower salary. Okay, great. You are now one step closer to a successful job interview. Good luck in your job hunting endeavors. Please like if you enjoyed the video, and make sure you reach out in the comment section below, sharing some of the situations you have faced when looking for a job.